Before we start this video, a large thank you to William, Fallen, Juiced, If, and Deo, and Kevin for their support on Patreon. I hope you guys enjoy the video. And an immense thank you to Halo Burner for their continued support to the channel this month on Patreon. It is greatly and sincerely appreciated, my friend, and I hope you enjoy the video. Hello everybody, and today we are going to conclude the base functionality of our parry system. So when you go and approach an enemy, when they attack you, if they can be parried, you perform a parry, boom, set them up for riposte. They'll play an animation to indicate they have been parried. Alright, let's finish this up. So let's start by going to the Character Network Manager. Let's open that up. So when we open that up, we want to add a new flag here under the flags. And again, this is the Character Network Manager. It should be in the base class. So copy any of these bools and change it to is parrying. So I'm going to put this under is blocking because I feel like it makes the most sense to go there. And this is going to toggle during specific frames of your parry. So we'll call this the parry window. This is where if you get struck by an attack while this is open, instead of taking damage, you will instead parry the attack. So let's go over now to the Character Combat Manager, and I'm going to create two new functions, enable and disable is parrying. And we're going to check if we are the owner. Since this is a network variable, this will be an animation event. We only want to change this logic if we are the owner. So I'm going to change is invulnerable to is parrying on both of these. We're going to set it to true and false. And now we have to also reset this on our reset animation event. So let's go over now and make sure we're on any of the controllers that have the reset action flag. And now come down here, and again, if you are the owner, reset it here. So that way if any weird stuff happens when we leave the animation state, it's getting reset, just a safety net basically. Okay, cool. Now here you have the parry frames. I believe these are from Dark Souls 3. I did take these on a random place from the internet, so they might be incorrect, but these look pretty correct to me. So you have these blue frames here, on the medium shield for example. These are the frames that you are parrying, and if you get struck within these frames, you will perform a parry. You can see that the small shield has a couple more frames, so the window is a little bit larger, and then parry weapons and fist weapons have an even faster / larger window. They have quicker startup times, and their parry time lasts a bit longer. So over here now, and again, if you don't want to wait for the update, because Unity is being a little bit odd and I had to submit some kind of request for them, so it'll be a couple weeks to look at it. If you own the Shield animation pack, you can DM me on Discord, send me your invoice number, and I will send you these animations right now. Also, if you're a Patreon, they are available on my Patreon page. So here we have parry charge, fast, and slow, and we have the parry release. So I'm going to go ahead and put these windows here wherever I see fit, open and close. Now I'm not going to spend too much time on this. I do have it set up in Nephilim in a proper way, but just for the demonstration purposes of this video, I will go and just kind of set them up wherever for now and readjust them later. So I'll have the window about between 4 and 6 frames. So we'll say 17 to 22. That's good. 5 frames. That's enough. And I'm going to now copy this is parrying flag, and I'm going to make another flag here right below it, and I'm going to call this is parryable. So this basically will determine if you can be parried, because some attacks can't be, like two-handed ultra great sword attacks, for example, generally can't be parried. So I'm going to go over to the AI actions now, and this is the AI character attack action, and I'm going to just create a simple flag for can this attack be parried. We can make a bool is parryable is equal to true, we'll say defaultly, and then what we want to do is right when we run this, just basically change that flag to true. And we do that by saying AI character network manager is parryable dot value is equal to is parryable. And again, after their attack, it will go back to the reset action bool for the animator, and it will reset to false. And then depending on their next attack, if that's parryable or not, then it will be set to true again. So go to damage collider now. We got to do a couple things. The damage collider script, we have to make a new base function. So it's going to be a protected virtual void. Check for parry. Likewise, if we have check for block, this is check for parry. I'll make it require a character manager for the damage target, and I'm just going to actually reposition this so it's next to check for block, just so it's all in the same place. Now let's go to the melee weapon damage collider, and let's override it there, and let's write some logic. Now keep in mind, if you're using custom damage colliders for your enemies, like I do on a lot of mine, you might want to tailor this to specifically work for those damage colliders if it is treated differently. So we have check for target is blocking here too. We can also drop all this stuff in, so let's do that right now too. Let's finish this damage collider. We have check for blocks, let's call that. Check if we can damage this target based on friendly fire. We can do that too. We have the world utility manager, so let's do that. We can make a return. We can also check for invulnerability right below damage targets. We're going to say if damage target dot character network manager dot is invulnerable, if not invulnerable, sorry, then we're going to go ahead and damage the target. Let's also paste this to where the damage target is. Check for invulnerability because that's a new thing we added after rolling, and we haven't been back here since, to my knowledge. So next we're going to check for friendly fire, and I'm also going to run this if the damage target is equal to character cause damage return afterwards. And then we're going to say if world utility manager instance, can I damage this target? So if I can't damage this target, we're going to do that by putting an exclamation point at the beginning. Then we're going to return. And we're going to check to see if we can damage the target by passing the character causing damage character group and the damage targets character group using our utility script or functionality that we made a long time ago. So if we cannot damage this target, simply return. That's it. Pretty simple. And we're good to go. Now let's run check for parry right below that. I like checking for parry before block, obviously, because it's more of a priority, I would say. So check for parry. And then we're going to pass the damage target. Okay, cool. Now, under check for parry, let's write some logic. This one's actually pretty straightforward. What we're going to do is say if characters damaged contains the damage target, return. It means we've already been hit or something's already happened, and we should not be checking for parry after that's happened. If character causing damage dot character network manager cannot be parried, so if they're not parryable, you want to return. And if they are parryable and they are not in the damage list, we want to first check if the damage target is not the owner, return. Then if the damage target dot character network manager dot is parrying dot value, then we want to actually confirm that the parry has happened. So for this, we need to set up a server RPC, which we don't have yet, but let's first also add characters damaged to the list of the damage target so nothing else can happen. This basically stops them from being damaged because remember, we're checking to see if they've already made this list before we damage them. Damage target dot character network manager dot notify server of parry server RPC. Then we're going to pass the character causing damage dot network object ID. So this doesn't exist yet. Let's go set it up. And we're also going to say damage target dot character network manager dot play instant action animation. Whoops, it's supposed to be character animator manager. Sorry. Dot play instant action animation, and we're going to play the parry, the finish part of it. So we'll call that, what would we call it again? Parry underscore land 01, I believe is what we call it. So it just snaps to the animation, which makes it look way cooler. Okay, cool. Now let's save that. And now let's jump over into the character network manager. Now let's make that server RPC. So I'm just going to copy one of the old ones we already have here. I'm going to paste it right below process backstab from server. Actually, you know what, we'll just write it from scratch. Make a comment, Parry. Going to make a field for server RPC here. And then I'm going to make it not require ownership. This means that you can call it on somebody else's game object if you don't own that game object. So we're using that now to call it through this parry functionality on the other player's game object. So public void notify server of parry server RPC. And again, we're going to make this require an ulong variable for parried client ID. And then we're going to do the client RPC. So we can just copy and paste this because we're only changing the keywords here, server to client. Everything else is pretty much the same. Now there is no require ownership thing here because this is just being ran from the server. And server becomes client. Okay, cool. Now the last one is just the basic function that gets played from the client RPC. So I'm going to call this, oh, this needs to be protected first off. The client RPC does not need to be public. So protected void process parry from server. And we make it require again the ulong variable for the parried client. All right, cool. So the first one is super simple. All we're going to do is say if this is the server, we're going to run notify server of parried client RPC. Pretty straightforward. Whoops, not process. There we go. Now, inside here, we're just going to come down into the client RPC, and we're going to say perform or process, parry from server, basically the function we just made down below. And now down below here, we're just going to check for the owner regarding this, and then do some stuff. So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to make a character manager variable called parried character. We're going to make a network manager. We're going to make it equal to the network manager.singleton.spawn manager.spawn objects. Pass the parry client's network object ID. Say .game object get component character manager. Cool. What's next? Parried character. .character animator. Play target action animation instantly. Parried 01. True. Excellent. Close all damage colliders. That one's important. We could make a check too and say if you're not the owner, we can simply return. Or if you are the owner, play this logic. If you want to do some other stuff here that non-owners would have to do, we're going to say if the parry character is null, return. Yeah, the closing all damage colliders bit is important. You want to do this so basically if you get hit and then you're into a parry, the collider on your weapon still isn't open floating around in the air, because that would hit a character after they've come out of that animation or hit another character that's walking by. So go to the character combat manager and make a public virtual void close all damage colliders. And depending on how your character managers are set up, you're going to want to do this differently. So I'm going to go to my undead combat manager and override this. And now you can see I have two damage colliders. I got the right hand and the left hand. So this is pretty simple. I'm just going to call both the right hand and the left hand and just call .disable damage collider. And then do the same thing here for the left hand. Now for the player, it's pretty much equally straightforward. We have weapon managers, and these are never going to be null, because if you don't have a weapon, it's going to auto default to your unarmed weapon. It's always going to do this if it's set up properly. So we're going to call override close all damage colliders, and all we're going to do is basically reference those weapon managers. So we can do that by going to player, the player variable up there, .player equipment manager, .right weapon manager and left weapon manager. And then I believe it's called the melee weapon damage collider. Then we just say .disable damage collider. And then do the same thing for your left weapon, and you're good to go. Alright, cool. Let's save that. Going to minimize this here now. Go back into the project. Going to open up the undead damage collider. And let's not forget to basically make sure this is working the same. So this extends from damage collider. So you can see your damage collider does not check for a parry. So let's do that. And let's pass the damage target. And we should be good to go. But we also need to override the check for parry functionality, because right now you can see it's blank. So we can just copy that functionality directly as we have it from the melee damage collider, because it's identical. And we can't check for friendly fire on the base class because there is no character causing damage variable. Because sometimes characters aren't causing damage. Damage colliders can be from just like running into some kind of environmental hazard. So over here on the undead hand damage collider, I'm just going to do check for parry and copy and paste the stuff from the melee damage collider. Now character causing damage instead becomes undead character, because it's just always that same character. Alright, that looks good. Now we can save that. Okay, go back into the inputs now, and I'm actually going to add a dead zone on my movement. You don't need to do this. I just find there's a bit of ghost movement because my joystick's a little bit not perfect. It drifts sometimes. So if you have the same issue, add a stick dead zone to it, and it should fix that problem. I'm going to go to stance broken now. The reason why I'm going here is because we have an animation event on it already. You can see here it's enable repostable, and we also have, play the sound effects. So I'm going to do that. Because they're identical, I'm going to place those on the get parried animation. Again, parry victim animation, this will be uploaded to the Patreon if you are a patron. And if you want to wait for the shield pack, if you have it, it's going to go there too. If you already have the shield pack and you don't want to wait, send me an invoice and I'll also send you this animation. I just added this one to it just a couple days ago, so this is what it looks like. You can also use stance broken here, honestly, if you want. They're pretty close to being the same. But if you want something that's a bit more unique, you can use this animation. Again, if you have your own animations, that's cool too. Just use whatever you want. You can honestly sub in a damage animation for this too, especially if you're just prototyping it. It's not that important. Don't feel a need to get animations for everything right away. It really isn't important at all. Just it adds something to it, that's all. In the prototyping stages, though, not at all important. So go to your controller now and do that, and then go to every controller that's going to have this parried animation and paste that in there. The most important part is the animation event on this animation will allow you to repost the character because we're copying after stance break. So we're going to the game here now, and I parry this gentleman. Let's give it a try. It's beta the first attack. Okay, so now we'll run in and parry. Boom, there we go, and there is the riposte. So let's just try this one more time to make sure all is well. I'll wait for him to get up. Back up here and beta the attack, and beta the first one so we get the timing down. Go into the second one, and boom, there we go. There is the parry, and there is the riposte. There you go, guys. So you have a parry and riposte system, as well as a stance break system. It's really coming together very nice. So if you wanted to, by the way, I can cover this some point in the future. I just didn't think it's important right now. I have a utility function. So basically, the players will be handled a little bit differently than the AI. They're going to be performing light attacks, heavy attacks, running attacks, all that jazz. The best way to handle this is to put frame-specific enable, disable parrying on each attack animation. But that is super tedious. But it is the best way to do it, genuinely. If you don't want to do that, there's a function I wrote that will basically auto-detect what type of attack the player is using and compare it with their weapon and determine if the player will be parryable while the damage clutter is open. This is not the best way to do it because that means the parry windows are open for a very long time. To give you an idea of this, in Dark Souls 3, for example, only a couple of the damage frame windows are actually parryable. So if you parry late while the damage clutter is still open, you won't be able to parry the target, even though the attack is at its initial start parryable. So the layers of logic there can get pretty deep for sure. Anyway, guys, that will be it for me for today. Thank you all very much for joining me again this weekend. I hope you all have a very lovely weekend. As always, an immense thank you to my patrons. It is because of each and every one of you I get to keep doing this, so you have my sincerest gratitude. I will see you guys in the next episode.